everybody. I'm so excited to see you all here on this workshop today. And we're going to have fun. We're going to make an abstract piece of art. I'm so glad that you're following along. And we're going to talk a bit about mark making and why the heavy body acrylics are really great to create these abstract pieces of art. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce myself quickly. I'm Brandy Antonio. I'm originally from New York. I recently relocated from Japan. I lived there for 4 years. And now I'm back here continuing to make art. I'm part of the Fine Art Collective North America. And you can find out tips and demos and all kinds of things, Liquitex acrylics there. We're doing Winsor & Newton products as well, demonstrations. So I'd like to show you how you can keep in touch with me and Liquitex and Winsor & Newton. So if I could have you share my screen for the canvas, Tara. Awesome. Okay. All right, so first is please follow us and visit us at the Fine Art Collective North America. That's TFACNA. Then you can find out about Liquitex products at Liquitex Official on Instagram. You can also follow me, you want to see what I'm doing, at Brandy Antonio, or you can see further works at brandyantonio.com. Okay, all right. So, all right, I would love to get us started. So we're going to be creating an abstract piece of work, and I'm sure maybe you've recognized this from the advertisement. We're using heavy body acrylic paints, and we have 12 new colors. So I want to introduce those colors to you in that new range. And then you can see how I've utilized some mark making in this piece here. So I'm going to walk you through step by step of how we can achieve different looks with the heavy body range. Okay, so first, let's look at our 12 new colors. There they are. And I'll give a brief description about each one of them. So this is light bismuth yellow. So it's a toned down version of bismuth yellow, and it's got a bit of titanium white in it, and that's really good for highlights. We've got light phthalocyanine green. So it's a nice opaque color, which I've been able to get great mixes out of in some really cool, like aqua type colors mixed with darker shades. And that's good for mixing natural greens and beautiful grays and pastel type tints. We also have indigo, which kind of looks black from this perspective, but I'll show you what it looks like knocked back with a bit of titanium with transparent mixing white. So that in its mass tone is a deep dark midnight blue. And that's great for mixing black tints and grays and greens. And I actually find myself using these three colors quite a bit in my paintings recently. We have that transparent orange. You can see how transparent that is hitting that black rectangle there. So that's a very deep red orange, and it has yellow undertones. And when you start to mix it, you really get to see those yellow undertones in there. And I actually like to mix these two together often to get a nice copper color. And this color next here is iridescent rose gold. So that's got some shimmer in it. Let's see if you can see. That iridescent rose gold is actually here in this painting. So maybe that will give you a bit of idea of how shimmery that is. So that's a nice opaque color we can use to have lustrous hints of rose gold and tones. And then we also have a iridescent black, and that has the shimmer in it too, and that's coming from the mica particles. So that's going to give you a nice iridescent color when you mix. All right. And then we have our 6 fluorescents. We've got fluorescent yellow, fluorescent orange, fluorescent red, pink, blue, and green. So we've got a really nice colorful range, and I want to show you how you can get the most out of these colors should you choose to explore with them. So one of the things that I like to do when I get colors is first add some transparent mixing white and see how far back we can tint that color, just to see what we can get out of it. There's that light bismuth yellow, the light phthalocyanine green, and there's that indigo that looked black in its mass tone, but with a little bit of transparent mixing white, you can see those blues come up. We've got the transparent orange and the fluorescent of the iridescent rose gold. And then we've got that iridescent black. We've got that fluorescent yellow, orange, red, and pink, blue, fluorescent green. Okay. And transparent mixing white is less opaque than the titanium white. When you mix titanium white with a color, it's going to immediately tint it. But this allows you, it's still a white paint. You can paint with it, but it's going to allow you to mix your colors and get the vibrancy still in the color without terribly tinting it. It gives you a bit of a range before you get to that straight tint. Okay, so that might be something you want to keep in your arsenal of painting when you're not wanting to quite tint, but you do want to get the vibrance out of that that color. Okay, and you can, now that we're looking at the label, you can tell it's transparent because this square is just hollow. So each tube of paint that you're going to get from the heavy body range is going to look like this. You're going to see the series number. You're going to see if it's transparent or not. The titanium white is opaque, so it's got a solid square. You're going to see the light fastness, and that's going to give you either a number 1, 2, or 3, or it might even say NR. I don't know if you can see that. NR, that means not rated. And I'll talk a bit about that in a minute, but you're going to be able to see these bits of information. So always read your label, and then on the back it shows you repeat information as well. Okay. So what can we do next? Let's do breaking down what we see here in this abstract piece. Okay, so this was created by layering lots of colors, working from back to front. And when you're starting a piece, it can be a bit intimidating to start on this white ground. So we can make a neutral tone just to knock back this white here of the canvas or whatever surface you're using, and just start from a neutral base and then layer colors on top. Okay, so what I'd like to do is show you that you can actually get some neutrals from this range. Though we see a lot of bright colors here, when you do color experimenting, you can actually get quite a bit of neutrals and different tones. So,
Brandy?
for example, yes.
Yeah. Ruth has a question. Is mixing white,
Okay.
zinc white?
Zinc white is that transparent white. It would be similar.
It's from Plaza.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brandy.
So if you have that at home, experiment with it. So that's really the whole point too. Like, we want you to use what you have, and then be informed to buy what you need and play. Okay.
All come in one color. Should I just give her this? Oh, sorry.
All right. So this is me doing color experiments with the colors that I just showed you. So here we've got that light bismuth yellow, light phthalocyanine green, transparent orange, and so on. And this is with the titanium white, so I know what kind of tint it's going to give me. And then here, I'm taking colors and I'm mixing. So mixing transparent orange with that light bismuth yellow and adding a bit of transparent mixing white, I'm able to get these really soft orange tints. I also mixed transparent orange with light phthalocyanine green, and surprisingly, we got this nice brown color. I call it cookie brown because I actually painted a cookie with using that mixture. And like I said earlier, that light bismuth yellow is good for highlight. So that's what you see right here. Okay. So this brown actually came from this mixture. I also mixed that fluorescent pink with indigo and got a really nice violet. And then it's starting to kind of gray down with the transparent mixing white. And this is, again, is that light phthalocyanine green with indigo. You can start to see that. And then this is one of my favorite mixtures. This is transparent orange with iridescent rose gold, which is giving me a really great copper color. And then I'm just knocking it back further with transparent mixing white. If you add a little bit of indigo to this orange mixture, thinking about the color wheel and colors that are opposite each other, this orangish tone mixed with the blue from the indigo is going to give us a deeper tone, and then knocking it back gives us some nice grays. And this is what you see here. So when you're thinking about gray, you don't always have to reach for black and white. It's nice to be able to mix complementary colors, or you use what you have in your range and see what could be the complementary mix, and then knock that back with white. And you get some really nice in-between gray tones. And that's helpful because if you're painting something and you want something neutral in the back, straight black and white doesn't really give your eye much of a direction or range to go in. But once you start mixing with other tones and tints, you can invite other colors into the mix, and it just has a bit more harmonious effect. So this was created with that same mixture that I talked about before, the transparent orange and iridescent rose gold with indigo and white. Okay, so I encourage you, when you get a new set of colors, just play around and create. This is a piece of watercolor paper, cold press, and just play around and give yourself little swatches, and then keep that. You don't know what you might want to need for your painting in the future until you see it. Sometimes just having these around gives you more and more ideas. Okay. So again, in the range, we have these fluorescents. And I want to encourage you to use that. We'll use this today, and we'll get some nice ground tones, even using the fluorescent colors. And these are important because, again, like I showed you with that rating of light fastness, it says NR, not rated. And light fastness has to do with the harshness of the UV rays on the paint. Can it withstand UV damage? And since the fluorescents are made with dyes and not pigments, like the rest of the acrylics are, it will not stand over time surviving the UV rays. So it will start to fade and change and shift in color a bit. And over time, sometimes you won't even see it at some point after hundreds of years. But that's really important to know in case you were trying to paint a mural or something outside where it's going to be in direct sunlight. You need to know that these colors will burn bright, burn fast, and then start to fade. And the way we know that is that we have, there's a system called the American System for Light Fastness, and their whole job is to test colors in sunlight and put colors in what's called a Q sun machine. And they put the color in the machine and mimic about 300 hours, 300 years of sunlight. And then they check to see what would be the damage over time. So this is just the fluorescent orange and sat out for 12 hours. Look at that. That was only 12 hours. Okay. And it's fading, and over time it will just increase to be faded. So don't let that scare you. We just want you to be informed that when you're using any fluorescents, it will fade. So just be wise about where you're placing your items, your paintings. So don't put it in direct sunlight. if you're making something that you want to sell to someone else, let them know so that they don't put their painting in direct sunlight as well. But I still encourage you to use these colors because they're super fun, and you can get a lot of cool effects. So for example, summertime's here, painting a creamsicle. So this is mixed with the transparent orange and fluorescent orange, and then we've got that light bismuth yellow for highlight, okay? And again, like we want to create that ground tone for that effect back and forth. So that's just some of the things you can do with the fluorescent range. I encourage you to play and use them, and just be wise about where you're going to place your finished product, your finished piece, okay? So Tara, are there any questions up till now?
No, we're good. There were just some product questions about whether or not the product came in a set, and they might, but Liquitex has not released a set that just includes all of the new colors. So there is a fluorescent set and an iridescent set. But I also put the link for your supply list, Brandy, in the comment,
Okay.
which
Okay.
isolates the new colors. And then
Awesome.
also come out in the email tomorrow, everybody. So you don't have to go searching for it.
Yay.
Great.
All right, so let's begin our painting. So right here, like many of you, I have a 11 by 14 canvas that I had laying around. And this is primed. And the first thing we want to do when we're creating something abstract is create our ground. Okay, so I'm going to do some color mixing for you to show you what we can get for ground tones. So the first color I'm going to reach for is a part of complementary colors. I'm going to reach for transparent orange, and then I'm going to go for that indigo. And once we mix together, we can see a nice brown color forming. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of that transparent orange and invite just a bit of that indigo blue and begin my mix. And right away, you can start to see that brown forming, right? So what you need might be in the range already. You know, you're needing a brown, you can make one straight from there. And the more blue, of course, it will begin to cool down more and more. And what I can do is add some titanium white. And I want to show you the difference between, someone had asked earlier, what's the difference between the titanium white and the transparent mixing white, and how that will look. So here's the transparent mixing white, there's titanium white, and I'll mix both. All right. So I'm going to just bring a bit of this here and bring some of the titanium white in. And right there, we're getting grays. We're getting nice grays, very warm, toned down color. Okay. Now we're going to take that same mixture, that same brown mixture, and do the transparent mixing white. So take a bit of that and a little bit of the transparent mixing white. And can you see how I only did a few strokes downward, but we're retaining that brown color. It's not quite as pigmented as our first mixture, but we're definitely getting a difference here. Okay. So now before we get to that, we can certainly get here with the transparent mixing white, but you'd be mixing, 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 and maybe you don't want to quite get this range just yet. So this kind of gives you a range in between before you get to fully tinted color and just wanting to see those tones pop up. Okay. And what I'll even show you is back to this cookie, this sandwich cookie. oops, this is actually that mixture of transparent orange, iridescent rose gold, and indigo. So I'll mix that for you and see how dark you can get with that range, since we have these colors out. So I've got some transparent orange. I'm going to get the iridescent rose gold. All right. And then I'm going to use that indigo that's already there. So I like a half and half, just because I like to see that shimmer and the warmth from that orange really come through. See the shimmer there? Okay, so once you've got that good and mixed, and you can decide you want more rose gold, it'll just be more red. If you put more transparent orange, it'll get deeper. And then I'm going to get some of that indigo and begin to mix that in more and more. And I'm trying to go for a color that's almost black. That's going to read almost black. Okay. And then on an angle, you can see a bit of those warm undertone of the orange coming through. Okay, so that's what I use to get those chocolate chip effects there. And that's another good thing about using the heavy body range is it's got a thicker viscosity. Viscosity just means thickness and thinness of a paint. So it's got a thicker viscosity than our soft body paint. So you can really create these moments of like paint that sits up. It's got these high peaks that'll retain your brush strokes, almost like you can pick it off. And just for comparison's sake, I'll show you what that soft body looks like, so you can see. There's our soft body, which is pretty self-leveling, meaning it's going to dry pretty flat. You get really nice coverage using your brush. Even just one application, you get really nice coverage. But you're not really going to get to have these peaks of color the same way that you would have with the heavy body. So I can literally scrape up this paint and I know it will dry just like that. So if you're somebody that likes oil painting and likes the glide of oil painting and likes to create these really rich textured moments, heavy body is a good choice. Really great choice. Okay, so I've got my ground here that I want to work with, and I'm going to use a flat brush, and I'm just going to cover this ground very thin, mixed with a little bit of water, and I'm just going to cover the ground really thin. Again, I'm just trying to knock back this white. That's my only goal for really getting the ground there. Okay, so I've got some water here in my little cup. Let's dab that. And mix. I'm going to go ahead and just start. And I'm just casually covering the ground. I love this brush. It does all the things I need for my initial stages of painting. So a lot of times, when you're creating, and you run into hiccups or you run into complications with trying to achieve certain looks, check to see if it's your tools. It's not always about your ability as an artist. It's really like, are the tools I'm using giving me what I need to achieve this look? So you want to really check in with yourself and think about like, what kind of look am I trying to achieve? And then go from there and find out what's the best tool for me to get that effect. If I were to do this with a small brush, which I certainly could use something like this. This is a flat brush, but it's not going to give me the same even coat, and it might take me longer too, as this wide flat brush would do. All right, so I'm happy with that. My next step would be to take a bit of tissue paper and just kind of like rub that in. Okay. There. And I used water because I want it to dry fairly quickly. If I want to retain more of the actual color, then I would use something to this effect, Satin Medium, which would help extend my color as I'm spreading it throughout the surface. Okay. But for this initial stage, I'm just trying to create the ground. And then the next part I would do would be to go a bit darker and heavier. So I can take this brush again and use that dark mixture and go over one more time. So the choice of ground color is really up to you. Just know that doing a mark making type of painting, you have the opportunity to see this ground at the very bottom. Once we're starting to scrape and pull up paint, this would be like the very last bit that you see. And mark making is pretty much like it sounds. We're making a mark. We're just trying to achieve marks within our painting. And why? Because it's interesting. It's interesting, it's freeing, it's fun, it's experimental. I love it. And it helps you to look at tools in a different way. You know, anything could be a tool if you see the mark that it could potentially make. Okay, so there's that ground.
Brandy, Judith has a great question.
Sure.
Are there layering rules for acrylics similar to fat over lean in oils?
Are there layering rules? I think yes. Of course, if you create something thinner, it dries quicker so that you're able to layer more and then go heavier and heavier. But the great thing with acrylics too is like if you create something very heavy underneath and it dries raised, you can go back over that, paint right over it, and now it's a texture. Have I answered your question or did I go around the bend with that?
Well, Judith can speak up if she wants to. I think it's I think what to what you're trying to say, Brandy, is just that the thicker you go, the longer it takes to dry. So you can't really work into something if it's super thick. And
Correct.
yeah, got it. And that totally
Correct.
makes yeah.
So the next thing that I would do is block out. We're gonna block out shapes, right? Because with abstract, we don't always know what we're gonna make, but we can block out shapes and then start to discover bits and areas that make us think of other areas to paint in. So I'm going to use that information and create 2 areas that I can start to kind of narrow in on my idea of what this might look like. And the color I'm going to use is a mixture I created with fluorescent red and light phthalocyanine green. And I want to mix that for you live before I apply it, just to show you what that looks like. And it's kind of fascinating that that dirty rose color can come from this fluorescent. So that's the light phthalo cyanide green. And I'm gonna just put smaller amount of the fluorescent red. And again, just playing off of like red and green being opposite on the color wheel, I'm going to mix a bit of that and go for a muted rose color. And then I'll get that. All right, so I'm going to be using that to create 2 areas on my canvas where the shapes would be blocked out. Okay. So I'm using now the palette knife just to lay the paint down. So that's one spot. And then I'm going in again with my palette knife, and perhaps I'll block in this area here. Just go ahead and lay that down. So I can use a flat brush to kind of move and manipulate the paint around. I can use that palette knife, or I can use this short, wider brush. But I'm going to use a household item that I had laying around, some cardboard. And all I did was tape the edge up so that paint wouldn't seep through, and it would be able to carry the paint from one side of the canvas to the other. So you can use household items to try to make marks, just making sure that, like, you protect it. If you don't have a scraper or a spatula or a squeegee, you can create that with some masking tape and some cardboard. So what I want to do is scrape that from the left side down to towards the middle. And I'm blocking out. My whole goal is just to really like create some shapes. So let's do that. And you can pick directions that you want to go in. Maybe that's showing you some kind of interesting marks that you're making there. So look at that. That already is interesting to me. I'll come back to that. And then likewise with the right side. And again, I don't know what this is going to be just yet. But I'm interested in letting the materials kind of lead the way and inspire ideas. And right away, I see a smooth transition, but I also notice like a bit of that corner scraping up the paint, and I kind of like that. So I'm gonna deliberately create some lines there and do that again. And that's what's really great about heavy body, because you can see those brush strokes. These will sit up and raise nicely and dry just like this. Okay. There. In the house the whole time. So the next part that I want to achieve is I want to put on my, let's see. I'll use my palette knife again. This is a number 16 palette knife. And I want to go in and create some dark moments that I probably will cover up again, but I want to start creating some dark moments in a pattern-like way using the edge of this palette knife. And I'll load up the palette knife on one side and then scrape, pick like that. So this is that transparent orange and iridescent rose gold mixture. And I really like the value of that. So I want to go throughout and just create a pattern throughout the painting with this in mind. All right. Again, we're just loading the side, and I'll start from the top and go down and see where we go from there. Load up again. If you're feeling apprehensive or you're noticing something, then stop, load up again your palette knife and keep going. You know, you don't have to suffer through your marks if it's not working for you. Be aware of all those sensitivities you have when you're painting. So look at that. We've got the shimmer from the iridescent rose gold, and then we've got those bits here that the palette knife left. So the nice thing about using the palette knife is you can control the pressure. And as you apply more pressure, the paint spreads. And then as you lift, you get those peaks of ground tone underneath. So I'm going to continue in a few more areas, like so. And maybe I want to see where one all the way down will lead. Okay. And again, I'm trying to just create some marks and some rhythm now within the painting. And I've already reserved this corner, RSVP, this corner for future use. So I'm saying now visually, like this is where my painting stops as far as this corner. So I'm creating a nice S curve down into the corner. And then maybe I want to invite something else here at the top. And the heavy body dries fairly quickly, so you can go ahead and keep layering, as we mentioned earlier. But we want to work from back to front so that we can always continue to apply and apply layering and get heavier as we go. And give yourself a chance to respond to the ground colors as you add new colors. And that makes me really happy, that rose. So the next thing I want to do is invite another household item. These are our ordinary disposable gloves. And what I like about using the gloves is that I can smear with my hand and my fingers, and it's very, very smooth. So it's going to end up blending the paint out in a way that maybe my brush wouldn't achieve. And it keeps my hands relatively clean. So that's always helpful. So while I'm putting my gloves on, I'm going to decide what color I'll use. It's more of a lighter tone, a lighter hue to begin smearing throughout. And it's going to give me this kind of effect here. Just blending in with inviting other colors surrounding it and just playing around and really pushing that paint into the canvas. So this time I'm going to get my titanium white. And I'm going to just apply it directly onto the canvas. That. And then I'm going to just start in a circular motion. Just start letting that white blend in. And you can be fearless with this. If you see some marks that you really like, invite them in again. If you've covered them up, go back over it. No real rules to this. And I actually want to keep that corner nice and light. So I'm going to invite that titanium white again. And with a circular motion, I'm going right up to the edge and blending in. And I'm getting that really, really faded pink, like a cotton candy or pink cloud. Okay, and I like what it's doing to this orange here. So I'm going to keep going. I can always invite that back in if I change my mind. Okay. So you see how we have worked our way from back to front, and then we're going throughout the canvas and responding to each mark that we've made. You know, we had that ground color, and then we blocked out the shapes with the pink, and then we started to create a pattern with the palette knife, and now we're going in with our titanium white and creating some light tints. And let's see if we can do that with the transparent mixing white. Okay, so remember, that's not going to give us that immediate tint the same way that the titanium white would, but we get to keep a lot of that color. So I'm going to go right here and towards the middle, and that's the transparent mixing white again. And go ahead with my finger in a circular motion and just fill in those gaps. Okay. And don't be afraid to pull in those colors. So if you notice the way that the smoothness of the glove is really having an effect on how that canvas, how the paint sits on the canvas. We're really pressing it in. And that helps us because when we go back in with a palette knife, we can really have that ground tone scrape up and see the initial color that we put. Okay. Gloves, your best friend. All right. So now what I'd like to do is go back in with the palette knife and do some scraping, maybe some lines cutting through. I'm going to use the side of it and just see what happens as I cut through. Just going along the lines and interrupting what I've laid down, twisting, and letting the palette knife tell the story here. Okay. Another thing we can do to kind of free ourselves up as far as making marks is use the back of your brush. Okay. And not only we're going to use the back of our brush, we're going to use our opposite hand. So I'm left-handed, so I'm going to use my right hand and stand back holding on to the farmost tip of the brush where the hairs are. And I'm just going to go ahead and scrape some marks into the paint. And I'm not really able to control it, so better for the painting's sake. Okay. Sometimes artists write words or messages in when you're achieving this effect, and you can see. You can let that dry and become a texture and go over it again. It's really like where you want to take your painting. The next part that I'd like to achieve is really solidify now some dark colors, maybe some blue and go in again with that iridescent rose gold and orange mixture, and further lock in those shapes on the side. So this is my, this is my light phthalocyanine green and indigo mixture. And I'll take a scoop of that out to show you what that looks like. Okay. And the more phthalocyanine green I can get into that mixture, the closer I am getting towards complementary colors again. It's getting aqua, and those greens will really play nicely on the side here as I mix. Okay. So I'm going to actually go into this a bit heavy because I'm going to do some scraping later. All right, so I've got that mixture, and I'm going to use the palette knife and just go along the side and line the sidemost portion of this painting with that palette knife. And you really get a sense of the peaks and the strokes that you're able to retain with that heavy body. Super cool. And I actually like when I can see a bit of the color mixing happening and hasn't fully blended yet. I tend to like things that I can kind of figure out how it was done. I like to see the process. That's just exciting for me and personal taste in painting and picture making. Okay. And that also gives me another opportunity to go in and do some mark making there. And this time I'm going to invite a bit more of that phthalocyanine. And then I'm going to go right back in with that darker mixture. Blend it up that way. Then I'll go towards the bottom. I'm going to use my gloves again to blend upward. Okay. So here we are. Glove. And just using my thumb to really push that paint into the canvas. Spreading around, grabbing some here, and pushing the paint again into the canvas. So maybe this will make you reminiscent of your finger painting days. But we are doing adulting, so gloves. All right. So again, I want to take the back of my paintbrush and just go along and start to scrape in a pattern motion and just see what shapes I can get. Okay. Now we can create a different viscosity or a different thickness, because we've laid our groundwork and created our patterns and some kind of line and textural work. And now we want to pick spots in the painting where we can go super heavy. Okay, so let's achieve that look by using the Satin Gel Medium. I'll scoop some out for you. And what that basically does when mixed with your paint, it creates a very, very thick texture, and it allows you to create those peaks and the richness while maintaining a good deal of the color, the initial color you're mixing it with. Okay, so I'm going to have a mixture with the Satin Gel Medium and pick some spots to apply that. I'm going to mix that for you live. Okay, So maybe I'd like to see some of that pink raised up in this area and maybe again in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead with my rose mixture and make a bit more of that. And then I'll show you how to create that thick texture with the satin gel medium. Just get this here. So this time I know I want a lot. So I'm going to add, here we go, my fluorescent red. Again, that fluorescent red is super strong. So whatever you're putting out, add a bit more green than red, because we're actually just trying to get the green to mute down the red. Okay, so I'm going to invite that red into here. And the nice thing about the gel medium is that you're able to get this really thick texture without using tons and tons of paint. You don't have to layer and load paint layer after paint layer. It does give you that really nice texture. And of course, because it's thicker, it's going to take longer to dry on the canvas. So just be mindful of that when you're planning. All right. So we've got that going for us. I'm going to lay that here. Then I'm going to scoop up that satin gel medium and show you its effects. I'll get a blob here. And it is super adhesive. So even if you're making collages, you can use, this will adhere to your paper surfaces or other acrylic surfaces that you have. So it looks white from the container, but it dries clear. So it's going to mix with this paint. You can mix this with heavy body. You can mix this with the ink. You can mix this with the soft body. And right away, you see that thick color. And I'm going to lay that here. Create these nice textures. And again, on this side throughout. And I'm going to use the palette knife and allow it to sit right above the other parts of paint that we use. And I'm going to cover that up with the blue. I'll cover up the blue here. Let that travel. And then to,
Andy?
Yes.
Really quick, Meredith asked, so about twice as much gel medium to the paint. What's your ratio?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Your ratio of gel medium to paint.
The ratio to gel medium to paint, I would do about 25% paint to gel medium. You can always continue to add more, but I would start there, like 25% color to gel medium. You can, it depends on your level of thickness you're trying to achieve, but I would start there just to be safe and see if you want to add more.
Thanks, Brandy.
And it's, yeah, no problem. And it does knock back the color a little bit because it does start as a white when you take it out of the container, but it fairly retains a lot of the color that you mixed initially. Okay, so our next effect is to create some texture with this roller. So what I like to do is have a darker ground color or neutral color and get the texture from this paint roller, this household paint roller. And all I really want to do is like let that lightly graze over the paint and pick up bits. And then I'm going to just roll it through and see what marks it makes. Okay. So for that mixture, I think I'm going to go for my, maybe that cookie brown, that cookie brown kind of color. Yeah, let's try that. So to get that look, I'm going to use the paint on my palette paper and strategically lay it out in such a way that that roller could pick it up. So think about the width of your roller and then lay the paint out about that width and then go back and forth, kind of like how you would do a brayer. Okay, so where's my cookie mixture, right? I'll lay that out. And just take a big scoop of that and start at the, maybe the middle's good, middle top, and just create like a really thick portion about the width of your roller. And then you can use the roller dry, or you can moisten your hand with a little bit of water. Just because you want to make sure, especially something with this texture, you don't want any hairs flying around in your piece. So just to prevent that a bit, you can put a little bit of water on the roller. And we're gonna dab and go back and forth. So dab a bit, see that? And go back and forth. And get it good and soaked up. Even that's a mark. I'm thinking I should have done that on the on the straight canvas, but next time. All right. So we've got that good and soaked up with paint. And I'm just going to start from the top and go straight down and see what it gives me. See that? So inviting some warmth throughout the painting. And again, even if your colors are mixing slightly, don't fight that, because it really creates harmony. It creates a nice harmony in a way that is unexpected, and in a way that the tools kind of free you up to discover something that you might not have done on your own. And once you start to see what the marks, that the tool you're using, what marks they're leaving, you can get more and more confident in that and press heavier into the canvas because you're liking what you see. And again, just play around. Play around. So right now I'm removing a bit of excess paint from the ground color because I want to travel here and see what marks this blue carries over. Can we get some of that blue? So feel free at this time to assess, like, do I want to invite any more orange into this mixture? Do I want to like kind of cut through something like that? Create interesting, swift lines like that into my image. And then maybe I want to reintroduce that rose gold and transparent orange mixture again. So I'm loading my palette knife. I just want to bring back some of what I lost a bit. And then the last effect is creating maybe a dripping type of effect at the top that would travel down into the painting. And what I'd like to do there is create that dripping effect, because maybe it will travel throughout thicker areas that we achieve with that satin gel medium. So to get that dripping effect, we actually have what's called pouring medium, which would allow you to create a very, very fluid texture for the paint. But I'm going to use, in this case, satin medium, which is a bit better at retaining the color than using water if I wanted to have like a very, very fluid type of viscosity for the paint. And it's going to maintain a lot of that color in a way that water, the more water you add, the more the color starts to break down and it just starts to really get faded. But if you want that vibrant color to stay truer, I think the satin medium. And so here I've mixed about 30% color, the indigo blue, with the satin medium in this cup. And I'm going to control the nozzle in this little plastic cup because I want it to pour along the uppermost corner, the uppermost top of the painting. So I'm going to tilt and start here and just let that medium travel all around the top. And let that do the work. See, if I stand it upright, I know that eventually those drip marks are going to travel further and further down. And it's something I might start letting to dry in this direction. I can also influence it and use the tip of my palette knife and travel throughout the painting. Because now the palette knife's kind of being like my pencil. Okay. So I'm inviting that, I'm just kind of directing where those drips will go and cutting through all those layers of paint. And using the side. Some on this side. Let it break apart and then revisit. And then, let's see. Use the flat half of my palette knife to drag down a bit more. And again, directly the dripping it downward. And something interesting I saw here, so I might want to even use the palette knife and start to scrape. Scrape there. See what happens. So you can scrape like that and then use what's excess from your palette knife and then go over it. Again, creating layers. And then that's really interesting. Okay. All right. So there we have it. Our finished piece, making abstract work. Let's see. You can even bring in those fluorescents again, just to create pops of interest if you'd like. And I would suggest maybe using one of the foundational colors you used in the ground tone. So we got this muted pink with the light phthalocyanine green and the fluorescent red. So I might invite right around the rose gold color, I might invite some of that fluorescent red in just to see how much more exciting we can get.
Brandy,
Yes.
Kim was asking, what color is the blue?
Okay. The blue is indigo. This is indigo and satin medium, the satin fluid medium.
So that'll dry a lot darker, right?
A little bit darker.
Okay.
This is actually like pretty good true to color. It does dry a little darker, but let's see if I have an example here. This is fluorescent blue.
Oh,
Not
no,
really an
you
example here.
put 2 masks on.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. So I'm going to go ahead with this fluorescent red, and I'm going to use a different size palette knife. I think initially we think of palette knife as a way to keep the paints mixed, but using that to be a tool on your painting makes you want to invest in different size palette knives, different shapes, just start to look at things a bit differently in that case. So let's decide maybe here. Just really heighten, kind of elevate that color a bit more. And invite these exciting bits of fluorescent color throughout. Just try to create some balance. And okay, let me pan out. See if we can get a good view of that. And there we have it. Pretty satisfied with that. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. Again, the reason why we want to create some kind of groundwork and then highlight 2 areas that we want to work from is that it also makes it interesting for you to turn the piece in different ways. So who's to say that this blue is the top? Maybe it's the bottom, you know, just depends on what your point of view is, especially if you're making a piece for someone. They have a different point of view than you, and they hang it in a different way that you didn't imagine. This helps to create that harmony, and then they have options. Okay. Right. Do we have any questions? It's pretty much, yeah. I'm happy.
You guys can unmute yourself if you want to ask Brandy about any of the color mixes that she did earlier, or any questions in general. We've got another, 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
So please.
Brandy, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Kim. I'm wondering
Hi,
when you
Kim.
look at your collage, how do you decide that you're done? Or do you set it aside for a while and then come back to it and think, yes, it's done, or you might add to it?
Sometimes I take a step back and look at it from afar just to get a fresh set of eyes and a different perspective. usually if I have these markers that I like to hit when I'm creating something. So have I hit this corner? Have I hit that corner? Do I see a color in more than one area within a particular piece? I ask myself those kinds of questions, and do I need that? Am I getting any mark that's interesting that I want to beef up more? And then after I've answered those questions for myself, that's how I can know, like, if I'm done. Have I said everything I needed to say? Is really the main thing. You decide that. Did you say everything you needed to say within this piece? And some things you need to say tomorrow. You continue that
Thank you.
conversation tomorrow. No problem.
That's great. Do we have any more questions?
So another thing that I'd like to, if I may, you may be wondering, when you're creating these works, and especially if you're using the roller and you want to reuse the roller, but maybe the paint has started to dry a bit, you can also revive that with the palette wetting spray rather than using water. You can revive that paint that was on your palette paper, and then start to like re-roll your roller in on the palette and see what colors you pick up from there. I tend to like, once I find a mix that I like, I tend to like to put them in these small containers with the plastic lid, just so I can have that on hand and throw them on the canvas as needed. Let's see. Yeah.
That's great, Brandy. Thank you. All right, I'll open
No
it up
problem.
one last round of questions. Anybody has any?
Okay. Okay. I have a question for the audience. Like, are you typically interested in the heavier types of brush strokes, like when you're using oils, or are you used to the flat acrylic paints? What's your favorite type of texture to work with?
I like to combine the heavy body and the more fluid, and also use transparencies against opaque.
Okay. That's a very, very nice point. Like the transparencies really open up a whole nother world of layering. In fact, you actually reminded me of something. We can use, speaking of transparent, we can use some household saran wrap or plastic wrap. And then to get another layer of texture, we can put some acrylic paint there and design it as you'd like, and then flatten it onto the canvas and lift. So we've got like a bit of printmaking as a mark as well. So I want to demonstrate that for you, and I'll use that with the titanium white. Can invite some of that there. So let's go ahead. I've got my titanium white. I've got my plastic wrap. And so I'll lay that flat and just start to randomly apply that paint. And pick an area I want to lay this down and kind of flatten it with my hand and lift up. So let's see. That's the nice thing about this saran wrap, is that we can already see, if you're a bit hesitant, you can already see what it might look like. And I think that's pretty interesting here. I might lay that down, this area. And give it a tap. And then lift up. I can fold it lift up. That will invite me to drag down. Okay. So that's another way we could make a mark, is getting that plastic wrap, creating those marks just in random spaces. And the more and more your paint dries, the more you can explore with the layering, as we talked about before. So this might be a 2-3 day piece, depending on how I want to revisit it. Sometimes when you put something up and you walk past it, you see something else, then you want to revisit it again. So I'm a big fan of like, just leave your work out and react and respond to it. Go about your business, react and respond to it, and then create as needed. You know, add more, scrape away.
This is Lisa. I saw a painting on a vacation where a guy, I don't know if he used oils or acrylics. I don't really know the difference because I've only ever worked in watercolors. So this is totally alien to me. But
Okay.
he did, it looked like he did a little bit of layering of colors, and then he put the paint on really, really thick. And then he used something and like etched into the paint and left those, I think he did like say flower petal outlines or something, and left those so you saw the layers. Yeah, where he had scraped away the paint, you could see the different layers underneath. It was really neat. So I could see doing something like that with this kind of paint.
That's a really, really good point, and that's an excellent idea. With the heavy bodies, you can layer, you can create those different depths of your ground painting, and even as you're exploring, you can create layers that people don't even see, but you know it's there and you need it to get to that, and then you can cut right through depending on the tool you're using, and then get to see those layers. But that sounds really cool. That what he did.
It was really interesting to look at because, you know, at first you think it's just this, I think the main color was yellow, but then as you get closer and start looking, you see all these little, you know, the underlayers showing through here and there, and it really created a lot of interest.
Yeah, so I think that you could achieve that with the heavy body, and then you can play around also with the gel medium and see what happens there. Thank you.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Awesome. Were you painting along?
No, actually, I'm at work, so I'm watching.
Okay. I'll talk quietly.
Oh no, I have my headphones on.
Okay.
I'll watch the replay and paint along with that in the evening.
Awesome. So I also think once you really get into abstract making, change up your surface. You know, I like to work on heavy watercolor paper. I like the way that it feels to scrape into the paper, but that's just me. But you can change up your surface and see how those acrylics sit on different surfaces and work for you. I love the combination of acrylic and paper. I also use canvas. The great thing about acrylics is you don't have to like always prime heavily when you work, because it dries like a plastic and you can just layer on top. But we do have like heavy body gessos that you can go in and prep any surface. But yeah, like create on canvas, switch up your surface, see what will allow you to sustain the weight of scraping and rolling, and change the size. This is 11 by 14, but change the size. Anything that can free your hand up will create really successful abstract pieces, because it's like we're more free, less controlling of the outcome, but really more willing to adhere to the process.
Thanks very much, Brandy. That was
Thank
great
you.
fun. That was great fun. I love the layering.
Awesome.
And I think
Thank you so much.
it can get thicker and thicker another day, right? Good.
Keep it going. Keep it
Fun.
going.
Yeah, keep it going. Absolutely. Thank you loads.
Thank you so much.
For those, thank you guys so much. For those that you participated, do we want to do a gallery view and have everybody show what they were working on?
Yay.
That would be awesome. Please turn your cameras on.
Yay.
Anybody gonna show?
Sure.
All
Here
right.
we go.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, look at that fluorescent pink. Wow.
No, it's not any fluorescent. I didn't have the paints you were using. I just had
Wow.
the starter set of heavy acrylic
Nice scale.
from Plaza.
Okay.
And I don't know, I started
Ooh.
with that light background, but it got out of hand.
Guys all did such a beautiful job. Love it, Ruth. Virginia, beautiful. Gail, I loved yours. Oh, wonderful.
Oh, I see some nice neutral colors too.
Yeah. I think
I
those
love that pairing.
Brandy. I mean, mixing neutrals out of fluorescence is not something that I thought that I would see. So that was very, very cool. Oh, nice, Lisa. Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. Great job, guys. Really
Nice job, everybody.
work.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Brandy. This was so great.
This was
Thank
lots
you.
of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
Oh,
We're so
awesome.
glad to have you guys here as always.
Yeah, round of applause for all of us.
Right, exactly.
Our first time abstract makers.
Yep.
Thanks so
No, this one's great. This was so good. Hopefully we can do something again with you soon, Brandy. And great work, everybody. Really, really appreciate you being here with us today.
Yeah.
Do have an email that went out this morning for our next class. That little, what is he, a kingfisher? Is that, yeah, that little kingfisher is very cute. So we'll see how that one goes. And we really, really appreciate you guys being here today with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Bye.
this
Let's
beautiful
encourage
day.
people
Take
to
care.
Thank you,
follow
everybody.
Brandy on Instagram. Her
There
stuff's
you
gorgeous.
go.
That's right. That's right. Where's my little card?
Okay.
Follow
Oh
us
yeah, you
at
want
the
to
Fine
show
Art
it again,
Collective.
Brandy?
Sure.
And if you
Where's
want to
that
share
guy?
your work, I'm putting the Create with Plaza Art hashtag in the chat too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
I'd love to see everybody's work. So again, follow us on Instagram at TFACNA, the Fine Art Collective, North America, New York at heart. And then at Liquitex Official on Instagram. And then I'm here at Brandy Antonio on Instagram or brandyantonio.com. So this was a lot of fun. I'm so happy with all the work that I've seen you guys do. And thanks for taking this journey.
Thank you, Brandy. This was really
Bye,
nice.
Brandy.
I really appreciate it.